go. Okay, so ladies and gents, welcome to the first AIM session. We are looking at essay writing. That is the plan. So let's have a look. First off, picking questions. So on the SAC, you will get 2 questions. It's the same as the exam. So on the exam, they give you 2 questions to choose from per text. So you pick the one that suits you. What I would suggest, I mean, what are some of your suggestions for essay topic picking?
For SAC.
Yeah, well, for either, for SAC or exam. Like, what would be a strategy that you would employ?
I would employ going through the questions that teachers give you. We've all given the same questions, the same sheet of questions. Instead of writing all of the essays, pulling them apart, then writing introduction paragraphs, and it's choosing as many as you can handle the right for ones.
No, I mean like on the actual SAC, when they're in the SAC room.
Oh, sorry.
How do they choose which one to pick?
The one you feel that you're able to answer. Not always the easiest one.
Yeah, don't pick the easiest one. Don't go, oh, well, that one's got the least amount of words. Yeah. Often the one with the most words is actually the better one to pick because it's either got more meat to it or it's deceivingly easy.
Yeah.
Because we find, and this is particularly on the exam, I find on the exam the easier question is usually the one with more words. Because I think that they've worked out that the lower end kids will pick the question that has the least amount of words in it.
And also,
like,
when you look at questions, don't dismiss both of them. Look at them, look at keywords, look at them as a whole first, then think about what is the question actually asking me. If you do get one with a quotation and you have no idea who says it, where it happens, you know that basic ideas, I'd keep away from it because you really need to, because that can probably come look at your contention with it and define your first paragraph. It pushes you in the way. So if you have no idea, best not to touch it.
Yeah. So I reckon pick the one that you kind of feel like you have the most to say about.
Yeah.
That you kind of like, I could probably write 5 paragraphs if I had the time and the willpower. Pick that one rather than the one that you go, oh, that's an easy answer. Because often the one with the easy answer, one is not correct, that there's something in it, there's a trick to it. Like often the easy question actually has a bit of a trick behind it that they're looking for. And, you know, you want to pick one that you've got lots of meat to talk about. You want too much to talk about rather than not enough to talk about. The other thing that I would really recommend is, like Lisa was saying about Smith, was saying about the quote. If there is a quote in a question, you need to like address it, use it in some form or fashion. So it is important that if you pick one with a quote, you need to know that quote. You need to have, you know, known where it's come from, what it's about. And usually they put a quote in because they want to push you in the right direction of a question. So they're like, this question might be misinterpreted, so I'm going to give them this quote as well so that they know that I'm particularly wanting them to talk about feminine role models in Rear Window. I want them definitely to talk about that because I'm worried that they won't. So they'll put in that quote to kind of go, here, this is the right direction to go with that question. Okay? So they want you to use it in some form or fashion. Okay?
The other thing I thought about, there's always the one you think, oh, that sounds really easy. Like something like, I think someone gave me an essay the other day. Someone's going on Jesus Camp. Who is it? It had, that's what they might be there. Everybody engages in voyeurism or something like that. So it was very similar to the question I'm talking about. And you look at it, you go, oh yeah, everyone's a voyeur. I've got everything to say. And you go, oh, I'll start with, you know, maybe look at Lisa and I'll look at Sally. You think, no, that's not really what he's getting at. He's saying, well, is everyone a voyeur? To what extent does everyone have the capacity? What is voyeurism? Look at the social context of the era.
It's also prompting you to think, who isn't and
voyeur?
why? So, like, those kind of simple questions are actually the ones where there's a trick in it. So, for instance, there's another one on the list, again, about voyeurism.
Was that one on the list?
It might have been. But there's also another question that says something about an obsessive voyeur.
Oh, yeah.
Obsessive voyeur. And so a mid-range student will write an essay about, you know, yes, we're turned into, does Rear Window turn, does the audience become as obsessive voyeur? And so a mid-range student will go, yes, we're supposed to be a voyeur because. A little bit better, maybe at best a 6, will go, yes, no. What the question's actually asking is about obsessive voyeurism. It wants you to address that word obsessive and go, well, are we obsessed? Is it okay to be obsessed? To what point does Hitchcock kind of allow us to be voyeurs but not become obsessive? So that's the trick in that question. Do you see what I mean? So often, if you get a really simple question, look twice at it because there's a trick. Because you're in Year 12, they're not going to give you an easy question. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. There are only hard questions. And any question masquerading as an easy question is lying to you. Okay? There's got to be a trick in it. Okay? All right. So, that's step 1. All right. Highlighting key terms. So, what you want to start looking for is like breaking up the question and go, right, well, what is important in this question? What am I supposed to look for in this question? So the question that I've kind of got here is, how do sound and camera use contribute to the societal messages of Rear Window? Okay. Oh, perfect. Oh, perfect. Okay, so like, obviously the things that I need to talk about are sound. I need to talk about sound. I need to talk about camera use. I can't ignore those two. They're in there. If I decide to go off task and start talking plot, I'm not doing the job. Okay? Contribute to societal messages. So I have to think about, well, what messages from society are, about society are given to us. So you could talk about things like marriage. You could talk about, roles of women. You could talk about roles of men. Actually, we've been talking quite a lot about men today.
What was the extent of that question?
The societal messages.
The one about
voyeurism. Yeah, voyeurism, isolation, living in isolation, and your responsibilities to your kind of fellow neighbour. So there are lots of kind of societal messages in there. And you've got, obviously, that lovely word, how. Now, how is a text construction prompt. That it's going, not only are you going to tell me that sound and camera use are, contribute to the societal messages, you also need to tell me how do they do that. Okay, there is no avoiding it. So if you get a how question, think text construction. It wants you to go, how is it put together? And those questions are the best questions because text construction questions score better. If you look at the breakdown of scores, they score better. Students do better on them because a lot of the high range, if you read the study designs criteria for the exam, all the high range ask for text construction stuff. So if your question already prompts you to write text construction stuff, that's great for you. And even if you write a pretty shitty essay, if you've got text construction, they go, yeah, but they've got text construction, so I was going to give them a 4, but I'll bump them to a 5 because they've got some decent text construction in there. So that's really a useful kind of question to go for because it forces you to do it. Pardon? Is that not up there? Oh, okay. Yes, my love. Excellent question. Okay, text construction is basically anything that is deliberately put into a text, which is to say everything. So lighting, all that cinematography stuff, text construction. So sound, camera angles, actors, actions with their faces, like actor performance, the physical people, the choice of particular people. Like today we were talking about Stella, costume. We were talking about Stella today and saying how like the choice of Stella as an actress is deliberate. Like, she's supposed to be plain in comparison to the goddess that is Grace Kelly. She's supposed to kind of be very plain and matronly and, you know,
Sort of not,
unattractive.
word not sexy, but you
Plain.
don't look at it twice. You're
Yeah,
plain.
she's very plain. Yeah. She's done deliberately so that Jeff, you know, can't label her as like a stupid bimbo. That he can't just kind of put her in that stereotype of, you know, dumb blonde. That he takes her more seriously. And part of that is because she's plain. Anyway, so all of that. But then you can even talk about things like, so you might choose a particular quote even, and even quotes can be text construction and go, you know, Hitchcock has chosen to have the actor use this particular line in order to. Basically, it's anything where you are talking about deliberate decisions of a director or an author to further some sort of point.
An interesting way into that one is, I think when we looked at it last year, I don't know whether we did it in class, because I deliberately chose a picture that the question nobody wants to go for, because it's not, you look at it,
You may as well, yeah.
Because you could look at the opening sequence, you could actually look at the whole opening sequence, I think it goes for like 8 minutes or something.
It's all text construction.
That you could actually use that as a paragraph, and look, he's inviting us to look in, and then we feel like, but in the next one, we feel like he's intruding guests into, you know, he's asleep, and we go through his most private of possessions in his apartment, so that's all text construction. That can give us the expectation that we, you know, we should look because we're invited to look, but on the other hand, it's like, well, there is a line.
Yeah. So you could talk about the text construction
Yeah.
of the blinds going up. You could talk about the text construction of the pan around the neighbourhood. And then you could talk about the text construction of the choices of items that we're deliberately shown in the apartment. You know how we're shown the broken leg, then we're shown the broken camera, and then the photo, and we're supposed to go 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Now I see what's happened.
You go through about 8 minutes.
Yeah. So all of that is text construction. You know, and we've got what? Props, we've got zooms and pans, we've got camera work, and then, yeah, the negative, yeah. So there's all of that stuff. Basically anything that you can say is deliberately done in a film or a book is text construction. Does that make sense?
Miss Smith had a question because we were watching Rear Window just last lesson and we saw two women in Miss Torso's room while Jeff and his
Right at the beginning. So it's just when she's come in, they have dinner, and she's seated, and it's just as the sunset comes up, and then you see, because Celis thought it was a bloke. I'm like, nah, there's no bloke in there. So I went back, and there were two, it's like someone's training her to dance.
Oh, yeah, no, there is the dancing session.
Because he would have paid someone to be in there, to be that actress.
Yeah.
So she's in there for a purpose to say that, you know, every other time we see her, she's surrounded by men. To say, well, she does have female, I don't know.
Yeah. I think, yeah, isn't it like there's
She looks like the dance
a girl, yeah, and there's a dance instructor. She's sitting, and then I think there's a male, like, lifting her, like doing a lift,
Yeah, that's an
and then spinning. Yeah.
So I think it's to tell us what she does.
Yeah,
and
this
why
is what-
she's always
yeah.
scantily clad and what she's doing.
Yeah.
I think it's just in case we're not sure that she's a dancer.
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
All right. So highlight the key terms, work out what the question's asking you. This one is asking me about text construction. It's saying, how does this film do something? Okay, and then we've got sound and camera use. Got to talk about sound and camera use, and I've got to talk about societal messages. Now, my advice would be, as soon as I looked at that and it gave me these two very deliberate sound and camera use, I would think most people, particularly on the exam, will go, I'll do a paragraph on sound and I'll do a paragraph on cameras. Or I'll do a paragraph on sound and I'll do 2 paragraphs on cameras. One, I'll talk about camera angles and stuff, and then the other one, I'll talk about like something else to do with camera. That's fine. But, you know, part of competing against 40,000 people is to, you know, do something a little bit different. you know, and to push yourself a little bit. And I would say an essay like that will be good, but it won't be great. I would go, okay, societal messages. I can list loads of societal messages. Why don't I pick my 3 strongest societal messages and structure through that? Because that will be a lot more interesting, and it means that I will be able to give a lot more depth to the idea of the societal messages, which is much more meaty, much more showing my knowledge, than a paragraph on lots of different societal messages with camera angles. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that will be the better choice. Does that make sense? So once you start pulling apart your question, you start going, okay, what's important? What am I going to put more weight in? What's going to show my knowledge more? Societal messages will show more knowledge, more understanding of the text than camera angles or whatever. I would really try and avoid, as much as I could, writing a whole paragraph on like cinematic techniques. Use the cinematic techniques as like evidence that you scatter in, rather than like plomping it. It's like almost like you're cooking a pasta and you've just like dumped all of the basil in one area. Yeah? It's too much, too much. Everyone loves basil, but not that much. Like no one wants a whole handful of basil. Okay? I want to sprinkle that bad boy.
How does it sound on its own?
Yeah.
Maybe,
It's just a bit boring.
gender roles. It's like,
Yeah. It's just boring. So use the cinematics to justify your idea about gender roles.
light and dark.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions about that?
Yeah, is that the lighting?
I don't think you, yeah, I guess it would be lighting, but like, I don't think they're really going to ask you to like, you know, categorize. So like, I've got this video on,
I would say yes. I'd say lighting would be camera angles, but it's part of cinematography.
yeah, it's part of cinematography, yeah. But, you know, I don't think you need to kind of split hairs about it, but like, if you kind of went camera use and you go, you know, part of the use of camera is, you know, the inclusion of light, and talked about that, they would be okay with that. They would just kind of go, yeah, okay, I'll take that. They'd take it. They're pretty generous like that. Cool. All right, step 3. You write out your contention. Obviously, contentions are important. I really recommend, if you've got time, and you will in the SAC, in the exam it's a little trickier, but in the exam, it's a really good idea to actually write out, in the SAC, it's a really good idea to just quickly write out what your contention is.
Yep.
Before you kind of jump in and start like throwing bows.
Yep.
I would definitely write out my contention just so I'm like, this is what I'm arguing, I'm committing to this, do or die, this is what I'm going for.
Yep.
Because particularly on the first SAC, do you find a lot people kind of like
They digress
wander
all over
because
the
they're so
place.
busy trying to like show that they know the text. They're so busy that they kind of end up in a very
And have
weird
it on every
place.
page, have it on a separate page. Just keep the page out of your book. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And have your contention
Have it there.
So you're looking at it. What is your evidence going back to? Your contention says he both on one level he challenges, on the other level he confirms. So right, okay, that's where I'm going. What am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I worried about? I want everything I know about Buddhism. When you go, what's the question asking? What's my contention? Link it back.
Yeah.
That link back.
You've got 90 minutes for the SAC, so it's a decent chunk of time. You know, to write one essay. Take 10 minutes to plan.
Oh yeah, good one.
Take that 10 minutes, surrender it, and just go, look, yeah, it's 10 minutes and that's stressful right at the start to kind of not be writing and you see other people writing. One, you don't know what they're writing.
Yeah.
They could also be writing plans, or they could be just spending a lot of time writing their name, let's be honest. Some of the pieces that I get back, I'm like, you must have really worked hard on that name bit because you did not work on the rest.
And
So,
another thing is handwriting. We need to be able to read it.
oh yeah,
And please, if you don't write cursive, that's join your letters, please start trying now.
it'll make you faster
You write
and
faster
better.
and you'll write more. It's a simple fact. It takes longer to print than it does to do cursive. So please try and work on it. And if you're one of those people it's hard to read, leave a line.
Yeah,
But please work
Space
on
it.
your handwriting. Because if we can't read it, your assessors aren't going to sit there. They'll just skip it and move on to what they can read.
and that's why, like, I'm sure you push it in your class too, but like, you know, I don't want any notes written like on the computer. I want all my notes handwritten. I don't mind my
Essays,
essays, but
in
the
class,
notes,
off the board,
because
yeah.
your handwriting needs to improve. It needs to improve on speed, and it needs to improve on legibility. It's got to get legible, because you've got some people who are like illegible. And actually, like, if you have trouble with legibility means like you can't read it. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be readable.
Remember Daniel's?
Oh god, remember Ricardo's?
Oh. Oh.
Ricardo's
so
is the
bad.
worst. And like Ricardo's was so bad that he couldn't even read it. Like I would go back to him and I'm like, so what does this say?
Like Daniel Lee's.
And he wouldn't be. Oh, and Daniel Lee's,
Was that
yeah,
last year?
yeah. Daniel Lee couldn't read his either. It was really hard. Gorgeous kids, both did very well. I think they both did pretty well. Ricardo did really well. I'm not sure about Daniel, but I think he did all right.
Ricardo did okay.
Yeah.
Was the year before.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about Daniel.
yeah. I'm sure he did fine. He was pretty clever. But if you have problems with legibility, speak now. Like, come and see us, because, like, you know, we can help. You know, we can, you know, help you get there. But don't leave it until, you know, the last minute. Like, come and get help, and we can work on it over the year, so that you can improve it.
Some kids did take 2 pens together, and at the end of the year they took 1 pen off.
Oh, so it was lighter.
And that
Oh,
was
like
more,
weight training.
That was more wrist, because you'll find your wrist gets sore.
Yeah, they do.
So yeah.
Yeah, and your fingers do too.
That was
So, like,
one of my children, so I cannot comment.
yeah,
on
if you,
I've seen people take like batteries to
Yeah.
and stuff, so it's really heavy. So when you take the batteries off, you write quicker.
that's weird. I've never thought of it as that, like,
We didn't have computers in my
yeah, I know, I just write. But yeah, the other thing I would recommend, if you're somebody who gets really sore fingers because you hold real tight, I'd really recommend getting like a couple of different types of pen. So like find a couple of different types of pen that have different widths, because then you'll like put pressure on different parts of your finger.
No erasing pens.
Yeah, don't use erasure pens. Yeah, they don't like it. They can make it work, but they don't like to. So yeah. But yeah, pick a couple of, if you're a hard presser, because I know some people do, and they're like, oh my god. Yeah, grab a couple of different types of pen. That'll help. So they don't get you don't get a lump. Alright. We've got to keep moving. Alright.
This
Come on.
is really good stuff. You're hearing this now because you need to work
Yeah.
on it.
So write out your contention, work out what you're going to do, make it a clear statement, and use those keywords. So the keywords that you saw in the question, directly sub them into your contention. So here I've got, so the question I had was how does sound and camera use contribute to societal messages? My contention, I said, was Hitchcock makes clear statements regarding the communist threat looming in America, the disconnectedness of society, and the roles asserted by society towards gender roles. Hitchcock uses cinematic techniques, such as sound and camera angles, to communicate his views on these issues. So see how I'm directly using those words as much as possible, so that I know that I'm answering the question, and I'm answering all of it, rather than missing something because I haven't used one of the keywords. So that would be my suggestion. Once I've done my contention, I then move to arguments. Now, again, take that 10 minutes of planning so that you can actually write out your arguments. You know, I am much older and wiser than you. Not necessarily smarter, but I am older and wiser, and I've written more essays. And if I need to plan an essay, then so do you. Like, if I can't do it yet without a plan, then you can't either. So, write a plan. Write a plan. Take the 10 minutes. It'll save you in the long run. Even if it's just like quick little dot points. You don't get any marks for it, so there's no point kind of writing extensively, but just write out enough that you can refer back to it and know where you're going. Okay?
And vocab too. You got to get your vocab down, like subverts, disconnects.
Yeah.
The word disconnect, isolation. So you got to build up your vocab. You've really got to embrace it.
Yeah, so it'd be worth, like, you know, like in class when we're just kind of class discussioning, if you hear words that you go, oh, that's a good word, or that's a good phrase, I could use that, write it in the back of your book. save it for later. And then when you're writing drafts, get that list out and actually try and sub some of them in, because that'll start training you to use those words and those phrases that you like. It's worth doing, because you'll notice, I mean, I'm sure all the teachers do that. You know, when you use a word and you go, oh, okay, they may not know that word, you know, you write it up so that people know it. And I go, oh, okay, I can't even think of a word that I've used lately. I don't know. I can't even think of one. Let's use disconnect just for the sake. I'll write disconnect up and I'll talk about the word and then move on. Write it down. Save it for later. Yeah? So plan out your arguments and try and, again, making sure that I'm using those keywords. So I've got, in my 3, I've got, my first argument is Hitchcock makes clear statements about societal disconnect in America. So I'm going to talk about isolationism and stuff like that. And then 2, I was going to talk about Hitchcock explores the dangers of the communist threat and the duty of Americans to be wary of suspicious behaviour with sound and lining. And then thirdly, I was going to talk about assumptions made about women during the 50s and sound and lining. So basically, I'm structuring through the ideas of societal messages, and then I'm going to use sound and lining to back each one of those up. Sound and camera angles to back each of those up. Does that make sense? She's been sitting for longer than she can handle already. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about that?
These are a great bunch, aren't they?
They're really nice.
They're kind of like you guys are here to learn.
I know. I do. I like them.
Sorry.
I like them. I feel lucky as well because I've got 2. I feel quite lucky.
I just want to pat you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so proud.
I know. They're really good. I like them.
Vomited you out in one babies.
Oh, well, I don't know about vomiting you out. We're separate entities. It's okay. They're lovely. All right. So, oh, sorry. Mea culpa. It's gonna be fine, and you can have a copy of this. Like, yeah, I'll flick it to you. Don't worry.
She's awesome.
Everything's for free.
So chill. If you don't get something,
Yeah.
chill and think. Miss wants you to think about
I'd rather
what
you
she's
be
doing.
thinking about it rather than like desperately writing it. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I would always and I would thoroughly recommend to try and structure your arguments through ideas rather than going characters or cinematics or things like that.
Put your key ideas up here
Cool.
for my little kids who need those. So ideas. So structure by
Oh,
ideas.
look, you're on the video.
Oh, sorry.
No, I like you on the video. It's good.
Ideas, values,
Because otherwise it's just me.
and beliefs.
feels weird.
You know, beliefs inherent, like, you know,
Yeah. Like that women can do anything men can do.
instead of saying Lisa,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, and also try and move beyond sometimes the major protagonist and see what someone in the corner's doing. Like,
If you can find evidence to prove your point without using Lisa or Jeff, do it. Not try and avoid using Lisa and Jeff. I don't think you can. I mean, they're so prominent in our stories. But, like, it's really good to use extra people because it shows a knowledge that a mid-range won't have, a mid to low range won't have. Like, a low-range student will really only be able to talk about Jeff, you know, and maybe a little bit of Lisa. A mid-range will talk, by and large, about Lisa and Jeff. A higher range student is talking about Miss Torso and the pet owners and, you know, Tom and the artist. You know, they're talking about these kind of peripheral characters that also prove the point just as well. So go further than just kind of like, you know, the most expected answers is what I mean. Okay? Cool. You ready for intros? Let's do it. So, basically all I want in your intro is 4 things. I want 4 things in it. Title, author, contention, and your arguments. Tacker. Title, author, contention, arguments. That's it. It should be about 2 to 3 sentences. Okay? And please do not tell me anything about the storyline. Don't tell me that he's a guy in a wheelchair. Don't tell me that he's a photographer. Don't tell me that he is, you know, in a relationship with Lisa. None of that is important. Assume I have seen the film. I just don't know what any of it means. So you can kind of go, Lisa, blah, blah, and I'll go, oh, yes, Lisa, the lady who's in love with Jeff. Yes, I know her. You don't need to say, Lisa, who is the girlfriend of Jeff, I know that, but I just don't know what any of the significance of the things in the film are. I don't know what it's trying to tell me. That's your job, not to tell me the story. I know the story, I just don't know what any of it actually means. Okay? So don't feel like at any point in the essay, particularly in the intro, you need to tell me storyline. I don't need it. Okay? So this is my intro. And if you know me, you'll know that I love a bit of colour coding because I'm all about the colour code. Love the colour code. Okay, so I've got Alfred Hitchcock's 1954 film, Rear Window. Rear Window is more than just a crime film. It is an exploration of the Western world and its expectations during the 1950s. Okay, so there's a bit of my contention. I get a little bit more down the bottom because I'm fancy pants. And, you know, I decided to split it up a little, but it doesn't really matter. Also, you'll often find that your contention might also be your arguments. That's fine. Don't repeat it. That's weird. Just say it once and say it well. Okay? Even if that means that your intro is just 2 sentences, that's fine. Let's move forward. Get to the guts. Because you don't really get a lot of points for your intro. You lose points if it, like, is bizarre or, like, doesn't make sense. Or it tells the story.
It sets the tone of your work. So if it's a poor introduction, it's going to repeat.
It's a detriment. Yeah. But it's not going to win you points. Does that make sense? So you just want to kind of set the scene, get it out of the way, get to the guts, which is your paragraphs. Okay? So yeah. Where am I up to? Oh, okay. Through this examination, Hitchcock criticises the 1950s expectation of the submissive and demure woman. That's my first argument. Highlights the need for vigilance against the rise of communist activity. There's my second one. And his concern of the increasing disconnect of Americans towards their fellow man. Third. Okay, so I've just kind of like listed them out. Try and like see what I've done in terms of like fluffed it a little though. So I haven't made it like a shopping list of blah, blah, blah. I've kind of fluffed it. So I've got through this examination, highlights the need and his concern for, you know, I've kind of fluffed it a little bit so it doesn't sound like a list, but it is kind of a list.
1, 2, 3, that's listing.
Yeah, so I've just kind of fluffed it a little bit. In addition to using the predictable tools of plotline and characters, Hitchcock employs sound and camera use to accentuate these messages. So I've acknowledged that, yes, he uses plotline and characters, but what I'm going to focus on is sound and camera, which is the other part of the question. So what I've also done is I've made sure that I've touched base with all the bits of the question to kind of go, yes, yes, I understand you want societal messages and you want camera and sound, and I'm going to give you that. That's what I'm going to do. Okay? Because one of the things that, I guess the main thing we're looking for in the intro is that you understand what the question is. So if you've kind of used all the keywords, I go, yeah, you know the question. Good. You're going to answer it. Good. You're already on the right track. Because basically when, particularly on the exam, so they have a score out of 10, right? The majority of kids will get 5. A 5 is a mid. It's like a C+. Right? It's not bad. It's not like nothing to write home about, but it's not terrible. It's like I think it's like a 68%, if you want to like have it in a score, but it's like 68%. Basically it means yes, you answered the question. You did an okay job. A 6 is, yeah, you did pretty well. You showed a bit of knowledge. Yeah, a bit better than average. Well done. 7, It's a really good piece. Yeah, solid. Well done. 8, fabulous. Very clever. 9 and 10, wow, incredible. Okay? Then when you're going down, a 4 is didn't quite answer the question, kind of danced around it a little bit. 3, very kind of loose understanding of the question, had a bit of text knowledge, not a lot. 2, oh, 1, okay? That's basically, in facial expressions, what it looks like. So a 5 is answer the question. Basically, at the end of the intro, they can work out whether you're going to go a 5 and above or a 5 and under.
Yeah.
Because they go, can you answer the question?
And if you haven't got a contention, it was sort of like this.
If you haven't got a contention, if you haven't got arguments, you're not answering the question.
I also
So
call
they always,
key points. So
yeah. So, you know, if they kind of read your intro and they go, the contention doesn't make sense with the question, the arguments don't answer the question, they're already going, we're looking at a sub 5 here. How far down are we going? Because, I mean, like, if you haven't nailed it in the first 2 sentences, it's very hard to come back from.
Oh, can I quickly just say
Yeah.
something? There's 2 questions. There's another question, just quickly, on the stem of the question, there's one question that says, I think it's conform or rebel to social expectations, and another question that says Hitchcock's message about society or societal messages. Now, at a glance, right, you go, oh, they're the same thing, but they're really not. One's about how society, how they expect you to act. One is like, what is social commentary? What is Hitchcock's take on them? What's he trying to say?
What does he say about
So
them?
be very careful, like, about reading the question.
Read carefully.
Sorry. Well, you do Hitchcock's through you know.
So
cinema
the
style.
societal, yeah, and you would say the societal view is, you know, that you shouldn't have sex before marriage. Whereas Hitchcock says, nah, go forth and
Go
conquer,
for it.
man.
Bring your naughty over.
If it's 2 consenting adults, have fun.
But don't be cool.
Yeah, don't let anyone see you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so intros are important in terms of it's a bit of a make or break scenario. So just make sure you're answering the question. It's very clear that you answered the question, and then they go, okay, so we're going above a 5. How far above are we going? Which is a really nice place to be. You don't want them going, oh, I think this is going sub 5, because I don't think they're going to answer the question.
An
So,
introduction can make or break it.
yeah, oh, 100%. So that would be my advice. Just make sure it is as clear as crystal that, yes, look, I'm answering the question. Here it is. Here's the answer. It's right here. How can you not see that? Okay, use their words. It's the clearest way to say, I'm answering the question. If you don't want to use their words, use lovely synonyms of their words so that it's clear enough to them that it's like, oh yeah, they've got the question. Great, let's go. This is going to be good. Next one. Okay, TEEL. You must use TEEL in every paragraph. And like TEEL is such a loose thing. Like, it's just like how you would basically construct something because it makes sense. Before you start talking about a thing, you tell me what you're going to talk about. Then you give me evidence to prove that what you're talking about is correct. You explain how that evidence proves that you're correct. And then you link it back to your overall idea. That just logically makes sense in my brain of how to structure something to ensure that someone doesn't think you're a lunatic. Because, like, if I just started, like, yelling at you stuff that Jeff has done, that seems odd and a little disjointed. I need a bit of context for what you're going to talk about before you talk about it. You know those people who, like, come up to you and it's almost like they're on, like, sentence 5?
That's me.
That is Miss Smith. She'll, like, come in and I think she's actually started talking at her office, and then by the time she's come down to my office, she's, like, mid-swing, and she's just like, and then we did it, and I'm like, hang on, what? In what context? In what context are we talking about? What year level are you talking about? She's like, you know, in the year 10 assignment. I'm like, right, so we're talking about the year 10 assignment. Good, right? You've got to give the context, and that's why TEEL is so useful. Because TEEL actually encourages you to structure logically. If we could only train Miss Smith to use it in conversation, it'd be quite useful, I think. Other things, You should be layering your evidence and explanation. Gone are the days of one piece of evidence and one explanation. Those days are done. You are more than capable of getting through more than that. Okay, you should be 2 or 3 pieces of evidence per paragraph.
And when Miss Richards says 2 or 3, what she means is put in a beautiful mise en scène. So look at a beautiful example, a screenshot my kids are going to do, and explain in detail how that supports the point you're trying to make. That is invaluable.
And then go, furthermore, and then give another, you know, maybe go, and this is also seen in the same scene when blah, 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 blah. So you might just add to it. Yeah. Other things. Never use the words I, me, my, we. I've seen a lot of we. There's a lot of urine happening.
Starting topic sentences with firstly.
Oh, yeah. You do that in speeches. In speeches, that's really good. Signposting's really good. In essays, don't do it. It's a verbal thing that we do. It's not a written thing that we do. But, yeah, stay away from the we. We see this, blah, blah, blah. Talk about the audience or the reader when we get to books. Yeah, the viewer. The viewer's good. So, yeah, avoid talking about we. Just because it's a little too informal for a text response. So, yeah, if you can at all, like, the occasional one is fine. Just, you know, it slips in there. Ooh, that's fine. But, like, as a practice, try and avoid it. Other little tidbits. Sentences do not begin with and, but, because, so, with, or. They are joining. They're called conjunctions. They join sentences together. They do not begin them. We often do begin them in our own speech. Like when we're talking, fine. In essays, no. If you were doing creative, you've got creative license. You can do it.
Can I just tell you this? If you're starting a sentence with ing, like appearing in the film, you've got to have a comma.
Yeah.
Hitchcock. So if you're starting a sentence with ing, it's got to have a comma somewhere and link it to an idea. So I would advise, don't start a sentence with ing if you can.
If you're not a strong student, don't start a sentence with an ing word because you're probably doing it wrong.
According to Hitchcock, some people stop here.
Yeah.
According to what? So you've got to get your subject and your verbs and sort it out.
You're better at teaching that stuff than I am. I just kind of go, don't do it if you don't know how.
Try to keep away, because I've given lessons on this from starting with ing, because there are rules to this. My year 11s from last year got naughty smacks, got naughty cornered for that. Be very careful about your grammar. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Some of you I'll just ban from starting a sentence with ing, because I'm like, you don't understand it. Don't worry about it. Just don't do it. There we go. Okay, ready? Next one. Topic sentences. Topic sentences. This tells the reader exactly what you're going to talk about in this paragraph. It is the introduction to the paragraph. It sets the scene. It sets the context. You should not have any evidence. No evidence belongs here. Okay? It's one sentence that tells me what you're going to talk about.
And I'll agree with
and basically, it's just the argument. It's the argument. Okay? You outline the argument. Which, if you've done some decent planning in your 10 minutes before, you'll pretty much be able to drag and drop. And go, okay, well, that's it. That's what it's going to be. You should try and tie some keywords in so that your marker knows that you're answering the question, particularly when we're talking about the exam, because when we're marking, we take, I would say, 20 minutes per piece. Don't you think? Like, depends on the piece.
Depends on the piece.
But like
that's not including comments.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, including comments. But like, we take a decent amount of time to trawl through and get you as many points as we can. Like, that's our job, right? But the examiner, they don't give a crap about you. They don't know who you are. They take probably 3 to 4 minutes per piece. So, and they're just going, they don't have to write anything. They just go 5, 3, 6, 2. They're not worried about you and your scores. That is not their job. Their job is just to read it, score it, move on, read it, score it, move on.
And that's why if it's not clear, you won't get the marks. And don't try to be fancy schmancy. You need to be clear. Clear and simple writing doesn't mean baby writing. Just forget about all the nevertheless, with all due respects, and all of those little needless to say, those things that don't mean anything. Keep away from those in exams.
It's called styrofoam writing.
Yep.
It's the worst.
That was a Rick.
Oh, so bad.
But please make sure it's clear so anyone reading can understand where you're going. If you put it as said, aforementioned, it's like, when did you mention that?
Cut it.
Get rid of it. Make it clear and concise so they can read it. Yep. Got it. Good one.
Particularly on the exam, because the exam is all about business. They want to know that you know the answer, so give them it. Use their keywords. You know, you want it to be flashing in their face. Here's the answer. Look, this is the answer. Here it is. It's right there. Okay? It's a bit like, you know how like all those crap subjects like Bizman and whatever, like you have to use like the particular words, like the particular, you know what I mean. You've got to use the particular definitions, like the particular words, and if you don't use particular words, you don't get the point. Similar thing. Use their words. So it's like, look, there's the answer. There it is, right there. I'm following the question. Here it is. Okay? So, here's my example. The idea that women are to be submissive and fragile creatures is dispelled through sound and camera use in Rear Window. So I've given the societal idea, which is the women are to be submissive, and I've even used the word idea there, and then I've got sound and camera use. Here, I'm answering the question. Here it is. Yep.
I've been told before not to use the word idea in essays.
Why?
I don't know. I had this one teacher who would always like...
Don't name them.
No,
No. Yeah, don't name and shame. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Maybe they were just like, they just had like an irk about it. Yeah, maybe they just had an irk. I have irks about particular words where I'm like, oh, please do not use that word. That's,
I hate
it's just a shit word.
Like, not using the word like idea or theme.
Oh, don't use the word theme. I'm definitely with that. But I think like when you're saying the idea that women are submissive, I think that's okay. But if you went the idea of family, I'm like, well, there's lots of ideas about family. But if you said the idea that families often struggle with blah, 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 then I would go, oh, okay, yeah, that's an idea.
You could use concept.
Yeah. I would just stay away from the word theme because it just kind of sounds like a bit like, I'm getting this straight from my
You can't have
class.
a theme of McCarthyism. McCarthyism
No.
is a theme.
It's a social construct, yeah.
It's a social construct. So just keep away from the word theme.
Yeah.
Okay?
And it just sounds like you've ripped it. Like, when else do you use the word theme other than in class? Never, right? So it sounds like, I got this straight from my teacher and here it is. It doesn't sound like you thought of it.
Values, ideas, and beliefs.
Yeah. So make sure, very, very obvious that you're answering the question. All right. Any questions about topic sentences? Practice them. I have noticed that people have kind of slipped in their ability to write topic sentences. Please give them a practice. They're definitely worth their weight in gold. All right, evidence. I reckon evidence is like the thing that kids are best at, or my students are. They're really knowledgeable. They know the text, particularly this text. They really know this text. I'm so impressed with like the level of knowledge that my kids have on this text. Which is awesome, because I could not say that last year. I mean, you'd hope so. They really killed those spark notes. So, yeah. So, evidence can be cinematic techniques. So all that cinematic stuff can be as good, if not better, than a quote.
Yes.
I feel like people are like, I'm only giving evidence if I'm giving a quote. That's not the case. If you're giving camera angles, you're talking about mise en scène, you're talking about music, you're talking about all that stuff, you're still doing it.
Hey kids, do we know what mise en scène is?
Media students.
Good. Yes, no, is it Robert? No.
That's Tim.
Does he look a bit like Robert?
Sure.
Does he? Do you know what I'm talking about? Or
Who's Robert?
You're just being annoying. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Sorry, he looks like Robert. What are we talking about?
basically all the sound or things happening in the world.
Yes.
So you take
It was mine last year. I'm taking that.
if you get a screenshot, no, he's not mine. If you take a screenshot.
No, it was mine last year.
That is on Sunday.
Yeah.
Everything.
Everything in there. So the actors, the way that they're acting, all of that stuff, you could say is mise en scène. Yeah. Because we're jerks. Because
It's like in German they have particular words that mean taking pleasure from someone else's misfortune, but they don't quite die.
yeah. So it's just like a word, yeah. And because we're jerks and we can't be bothered coming up with our own words. Steph. Guys, shh. Listening to Steph, she's really clever. Like, you know, if Jack's talking, fair enough. But, like, Steph's talking, it could be useful. Shh. Put in the scene. See, that is why we take the French instead, because put in the scene sounds crap. Mise en scène. Oh. Delight, right? Yeah. Our language can be very ugly. So yes, all of that. Quotes. Please stop feeling like you need to memorize these gigantic, big speeches. It's not going to help. Yeah, grab little phrases that you go, ooh, portable keyhole. That's a nice little phrase. I'll put that in my pocket for later.
Larry! Larry!
You know, like find little quotes and little phrases that you go, oh, that's nice. That's useful. Yeah? There, it's a secret private world out there. Yeah.
Where's Tom? Where is he?
Much, much more useful than the big slabs.
Honey baby.
The other thing that you can do, obviously, is to discuss a scene. Now, one thing that I am noticing, and I don't know if yours are like this too, but like, kids often, particularly when they're not feeling that confident with a text yet, is instead of writing about a scene, they just kind of go, Jeff always is watching out the window and blah, blah, blah. They talk very generally about the film rather than specifically.
Lisa is always shown in an
Yeah.
elevated position above
Yeah.
Jeff. That means she has more authority, and therefore the viewer is inclined to be more empathetic to her pleas.
Yeah. When?
Who asked when?
Yeah,
What
when?
scene? What's it
Yeah.
talking about? Like there's 50 million
Yeah.
up there.
So,
Which one?
yeah, in the first dinner scene, blah, 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 like, set the scene, actually be specific about when these things happen. You can't just generally talk about something happening. You have to actually be specific and say, you know, when Tom and Lisa are discussing female intuition, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to, like, tell me the whole story. You don't have to go, Tom is the detective and he comes to see if there is something wrong over the road at the Thorwald's house, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to do that. I know who Tom is. Remember, I've seen the film. You just have to jog my memory of this is the bit that you're talking about. So, you know, saying when Tom and Lisa are discussing feminine intuition, you know, the camera is used in such and such a way. That would be fine. That's enough. That's enough.
Like the
That's
slam
enough.
of the door, the sound when she slams the door. And
That's my niece's favourite thing at the moment. That's enough. That's enough. I don't know why. She just likes to boss us around, and that's like a way that she's discovered that she can boss us around and like tell us not to do so. That's enough. I like it. It comes from a 2-year-old. It's hilarious. So yeah, please discuss scenes, but discuss them directly. Don't just kind of like, this always happens, or frequently this happens. It's not enough. You need to be specific. Yeah. I've got some evidence there, but I'm gonna skip on. You can definitely read it though, if you so desired. Explanation. Please do as much explaining as humanly possible. That is where your points come from.
That's your linking and
Yeah. That's like, no one really gets points for evidence. Like, not really. Unless it's like super, like, oh wow, I never thought of that before. But like, even then, it's not going to get you big kudos. What gets you big kudos is your explanations. Because, like, anyone can vomit back up something that they've seen. It's about explaining the significance of something that really gets you points. Sorry, Chloe.
Is the phrase for examples okay?
I think so, but don't overuse it. Like, it's a bit too easy. But, like, if you did it once, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine, whatever.
Show, they don't use it.
Yeah. So make sure you are using as much depth as possible. I'm going to show you something in a second that in the past has been very helpful for kids expanding their explanations. I'd also say every topic sentence, explanation, and link, use your keywords. Just sprinkle them in. Because every time you use those words, it's like a little wave to the examiner going, I'm answering the question. See, this is relevant. See what I'm doing here? It's relevant. It's relevant. See, it's the question. You're using the words, so it's relevant. It's just one of those very reassuring things for an examiner. Remember, usually they're doing this very late at night because we get no time off to actually do exam marking, and they're just other Year 12 teachers. And so they're doing this at like 2 a.m. and they're reading and clicking, or at yard, you know.
Well, when you're not on
you know.
so you're doing your freeze.
Yeah, and they're trying to just get through it. Make it as easy as possible for them to go, yes, I'm answering the question. I'm at least a 5.
Don't make them go like a search.
Yeah. I'm at least a 5. Look, it's very clear I'm answering the question. Okay, make it easy for them. They'll love you for it. So the thing that I wanted to show you about explanation